North Carolina has over 130 people on death row. This is part 2 of the series. Nathan Bowie, 31 years on death row. William Bowie, 31 years on death row. Bowie was charged on July 22, 1991 with the first-degree murders of Nelson Roger Shufford and Calvin Lee Wilson. Nathan Bowie and co-defendant William Barfield Bowie were both tried on a capital charge. Nelson Shufford and Calvin Wilson were approached by Nathan Bowie's aunt, Rochelle Bowie, and uncle William Barfield Bowie on May 23, 1991 at approximately 11 p.m. A fight broke out between Shufford and Rochelle. William and Rochelle turned to go, strolling down the street when they heard a gunshot from behind them. According to evidence, Rochelle and William thought Shufford and Wilson were shooting at them when Calvin Wilson fired his gun into the air. The next day, Nathan, who was 20 years old at the time, and his uncle William murdered the two men. Shufford had a single gunshot wound to the chest. There was testimony indicating that a bullet with a big caliber caused the wound. Wilson was shot twice, once in the head, just above his ear, and once in the right upper back. Wilson was on the ground when one of the shooters moved within 6 or 7 feet of him after he had fallen. Testimony indicated that the head wound measured more than the back wound. When the cops arrived, Wilson was unconscious but still alive, lying on his side. A few days later, he passed away in the hospital. Norfolk Best, 31 years on death row. On November 30, 1991, Leslie and Gertrude Baldwin were murdered at their Whiteville residence, according to the prosecution. A few days later, their remains were discovered. The body of well-known professional photographer Leslie Baldwin, 82, was discovered on the floor of a hallway that led to a bedroom. On her bed, Gertrude Baldwin, 77, was discovered. On June 4, 1993, Best was found guilty of their murders and given the death penalty. James Campbell, 31 years on death row. Catherine Price's body was discovered in a field in Rowan County, North Carolina, on September 11, 1992. Price's neck had been stabbed 22 times. James Adolph Campbell was taken into custody by North Carolina authorities 5 days after the murder. After he admitted his guilt, he pointed the authorities towards several tangible pieces of evidence, such as the knife that killed Catherine. Campbell gave the police a detailed and precise confession. He acknowledged doing the following. The first time Campbell saw Catherine was on September 8, 1992. He was looking for a weapon on this particular day in order to murder himself and Tina, his ex-girlfriend, whom he had essayed 2 days prior. Catherine Price offered Campbell a ride when she noticed him strolling down the street the following morning. He consented to her invitation. He forced her into a remote spot and put a knife to her throat as she was driving. Campbell came to the conclusion that he would murder Catherine. Even though she supposedly consented when he offered to have sex, he clarified that in the given situation, you could call it essay. Campbell had essayed Catherine twice before using such force to choke her in her car that one of his thumbs became numb. Then he used a sliver of Catherine's shirt to strangle her. But Catherine's clothing was torn and she was still breathing, so this was insufficient to actually kill her. Taking Catherine out of the car, Campbell laid her down where her body was found later on, saying, "I took my knife and stabbed her in the side of her throat. She continued to groan and moan as I sat there and watched the blood pour out of her throat. I wanted her to die, so I stabbed her numerous more times." After stealing Catherine's vehicle, Campbell carried on looking for a gun. He went to see a woman in the evening who he had been seeing since July. After arriving at Catherine Price's car, Campbell set it on fire. Subsequently, in front of the police, Campbell said that he killed Catherine Price because he had failed to murder Tina. George Buckner, 31 years on death row. In 1993, George Cale Buckner, then 38, was found guilty of Eddie Dow's murder after Dow was shot 3 times with an SKS assault rifle that belonged to Buckner's brother. In the case, Buckner was found guilty of robbery as well. During his trial, Buckner testified that he was a police informant attempting to gather information regarding narcotics activity and that the trigger was pulled by a different individual. According to the 3 people who were with Buckner, he was the one who actually pulled the trigger. Randy Atkins, 31 years on death row. He admitted to killing his 8-month-old son, Lyle Atkins, in 1993. He hit the infant 2 or 3 times against the wall of the Woodfin caravan that he and the child's mother shared, and he struck the infant several times on the side of the head. He said he bit the child to put an end to its sobbing. Medical experts said that Lyle's body had almost all fractured long bones, calling it the worst example of battered kid syndrome they had ever seen. Frank Chambers, 30 years on death row. In the murders of a Tutoro couple, Chambers, Robert Louis Blakeney, and William Leroy Barnes were found guilty of first-degree murder. For their armed robberies and burglaries, Chambers and Barnes received death sentences in addition to 120 years in prison. Blakeney was given the same 120-year sentence plus 2 consecutive life terms. In 2021, Barnes was resentenced to life in prison. Jeffrey Candies, 30 years on death row. Natalie Lynn Osborne, 4 years old, was essayed and killed by Candies. He was dating Natalie's mother. Her battered and nude body was found in a garbage bag in her home's closet. Candies said he unintentionally ran her over with his car. Natalie had been essayed and severely beaten, according to the autopsy. Candies was found guilty of first-degree child essay as well. Wade Cole, 30 years on death row. Cole was found guilty twice of killing his 2 children's mother, Teresa Graham, on June 23, 1988. Graham was 30 years old at the time. Additionally, he received 2 death sentences. Cole was twice found guilty of involuntary manslaughter in the death of Hattie Graham, who suffered a heart attack after being stabbed while attempting to protect her daughter. For the most of their approximately 15-year relationship, Cole and Teresa Graham shared a home in Camden County with Graham's mother. The couple had 2 kids, aged 2 and 11. Graham's 12-year-old cousin was also staying at the house the night of the murder. On June 22, 1988, at 5:30 p.m., Cole wanted to know where dinner was when he got home from work. He struck Graham with his fist and started beating her. Hattie Graham tried to step in, but Cole hit her and threw her against the car. On suspicion of assault, Cole was taken into custody that evening and was told to avoid the house. Yet, he came back at around 1:30 in the morning and used the back door to break into the house. According to court documents, he tore out the telephone connection before dragging Teresa Graham out of a bedroom and shooting her in the face and leg with a rifle. After dragging Graham's body into the dining room, Cole went to the kitchen for a knife and he started stabbing her. Later, he carried Graham's body onto a porch while stabbing her more. Graham had been stabbed over 100 times, according to the autopsy, before Cole fled the scene. The 11-year-old kid of Graham's cousin connected the phone again. After being stabbed while attempting to protect her daughter, Hattie Graham passed away from a heart attack. Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.